Who would have thought that my mate's little request would be the key to uncovering my wife's betrayal? Today, I will share with you a story that will show you that sometimes the most innocent requests can lead to the most unexpected consequences. I come from a small town, but I moved to a bigger city for work. I rent an apartment there and generally work, but sometimes I drive my car to my hometown. Sometimes to see my parents, friends, and sometimes even my girlfriends. The good thing is that the distance between these cities is a little less than 150 kilometers, so it's quite possible to get there and back in a weekend. And in this big city, where I now live, of course I moved out of ours, is not the only one. Anyway, I have a friend here. He too, after graduating in a big city, decided to stay in the same. And just about our adventures with him now I will tell you. And I think this story can even be instructive, or at least interesting. One Friday, I get a call from that friend. Kirill, how are you and all in this vein? We talked for probably no more than 2 minutes, and I slowly realized the purpose of his call. Aren't you going to your parents? That Kostya asked me. Probably I'll go tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday, I'll sleep and go. Why? Would it bother you much if you didn't go tomorrow, but, for example, today? I don't care. I can go today, but is there something urgent or what? And it turned out that there was nothing more urgent. He told me briefly that he had a girl there. But how's the girl? She's 27. I'll skip the details of how they met her there, but the main thing is that she's 27 living alone, as a kid who's 2 years old. That's what it sounded like in my head. And meanwhile, he added, and then the circumstances were such that I had to be there today. If we go, I'll tell you all about it on the road. Let's go tonight, huh? And I'll fill you up. In general, though I did not plan to drive 150 kilometers after work, but just because I did not refuse. After 40 minutes, our Konstantin was sitting in my car. At the same time, very happy. You buckle up, lover, I teased him, and we drove off. So tell me, what's your story? Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. Let's just stop by the flower store. I want to buy a bunch. Rose, I sighed. Why drive from here? What's going on in town? They closed the flower shops. Can we get there now and buy some? No, I need the big ones. I'm afraid they might not sell them there. What's she doing there? A birthday party, I asked him. No, that's not it. He answered thoughtfully. Well, something our Kostya is not showing good deer signs, I thought then. He and I stopped and he bought, I think, about 10,000 roses, which we had to put in the trunk because of the huge stems. That's it. Now tell me the story. Anyway, here's the story. One day, he went to his hometown and met a girl, Angelina. She is of a character, with a child, lives alone, and works part-time at home, doing people's nails. He took her out for a walk, took her to the movies and everything in that vein. But they never got to the most important thing. Why is she divorced? I interrupted him, and he answered me something indecipherable. You're that. I interrupted him a second time. Konstantin, you must find out why she divorced her previous husband. Maybe this is the very reason that later would not suit you. He did not answer me and only told me his story further. About the divorce, by the way, my story will be a little later. Anyway, he was waving his hands around and saying that no matter how hard he tried and how he seduced her, she wouldn't agree to anything like that. I even changed tactics. I stopped approaching her for a while with questions about Steely, and only helped her around the house and in life. But all I heard from her was no. But here's how much rope to see, but the end to be, and basically one day I still got my way. Then he started telling me that they were getting along and everything. But soon he started feeling this coldness from her side, not motivated, but just like, you're not there, well, don't be. But the game closer on is a classic, I answered him, and judging by his question, that comrade wasn't too on board. Well, in general, as a result of all these games, he realized how he should deal with her. Namely, said Arcostia. "It's time to take responsibility and propose marriage to her." And it turned out that that was the event I was taking him to. Wow. I exhaled, opened the window, and took a cigarette. "And you say your daughter is 2 years old, right?" "Exactly, because it's good. She's so little. I mean, we won't have any problems with her. She'll almost grow up next to me from the beginning." "Yes, that's true. But it's just strange. Bones, only 2 years, and already divorced." "Of course it happens. But just imagine. She just came out in this maternity leave. She has a bunch of worries. No normal work. You have to work at home, and the left heel also to take care of the child. Under such conditions, the husband may be bad, but divorce is a last resort. Don't you think?" I asked him. And it turned out that technically she wasn't actually divorced yet. "Look, are you serious right now? How are you going to propose to someone who's basically married? The house has been gone for 100 years. She and I talked it over a long time ago. He hasn't been there since he was born. He won't bother us. But she can take care of all these formalities in 5 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time. And this is like a ready-made family. On the one hand, she lets me in, and we spend weekends together at her place. But on the other hand, she pushes me away and doesn't pick up the phone for days." I thought and came up with an idea. "The thing is, she doesn't see me as a guarantee, so I'm going to give it to her today." It was after these words that I really wanted to turn around and take him back. I gave him the links to the vital channels on YouTube, but it turned out that Angelina would quickly re-educate him on the spot in half an hour. We pulled into our town and I drove him to her driveway. He started to call her and she didn't answer. "Here we go again. Well, as usual," wailed Constantine, and asked me to wait a little, because if you put him out of the car with his bouquet of roses, they can easily freeze. I looked at my watch. It was between 8 and 9 o'clock in the evening. It was already dark, and the light wasn't on in her window. "She's not home." "How long are you going to stand there?" I asked him, and he said that she must have gone out in the evening with the baby. And he was right. After a while, he took a bouquet of flowers and decided just in case to check whether Angelina was at home or not. But he did not find her at home. In 5 minutes, he came out of the house with these flowers. But Angelina was coming towards him with the baby carriage in front of her and her ex-husband under the arm. And on the second shelf in the stroller are some packages from the local supermarket. It's an oil painting. All 3 of them froze. From the look of this happy married couple, Constantine understands everything, and he stands there with flowers and says nothing to her except the question of what it is. Opposite him stands a man, apparently a copy of the one being carried in the stroller. And in general, to understand that these roses do not give the first lady he sees. Here the fool understands, judging by the bouquet, Arbonne and this Angelina see each other. To put it mildly, not the first time. I am standing near my car and thinking what to do. Now, of course, I think I should have taken my phone and filmed the whole thing. I would have left Constantine as a memento. But at that moment, of course, I thought, what if it didn't work out? So I went up to them and took my friend into the car. And that was it. He and I each drove off to his parents, and he told me later that he had received a bunch of angry messages from Angelina about how he had let her down badly and almost left her and the baby without a breadwinner. All in all, I think Constantine was lucky. And such a valuable life lesson he received for only 10,000 rubles. Exactly the cost of the very bouquet of roses that didn't come in handy. Next story. Who would have thought that an ordinary conversation about teeth would lead to the exposure of his wife's infidelity? Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will make you think about what can hide behind the most innocent of conversations. That's right, they say, as long as a woman isn't your wife, fixing her car or apartment or whatever is anyone's job but yours. I guess I agree. But for the sake of exception, I will also tell you my story, which would not have ended as well as it did if I had not started fixing my fiancée, her teeth. In the story, For simplicity, I will refer to her as my wife, because I already considered her as such, despite the fact that the wedding was just on the way. But it did not come to pass. I must say that I had a lot of trouble with her teeth at the time. I mean braces and all the accompanying nonsense. Anyway, Margarita and I started dating after we met at a mutual event. She was slightly younger than me, good figure, brunette. All in all, there was something there to pay for an expensive dentist. Perhaps the only downside to Margot was her overly picky nature of her work. That company does not fit. Another organization is also not good. In the end, she chose the work can be said for 3 pennies. But not far from home, there is not a lot of work and no problems with the team. Anyway, one day she came home to us not very happy. Again with her teeth. He messed up something there. You could do with an easier manipulation there, and he wrote me almost a whole list. Anyway, this was not the first time I had heard her complain, and I advised her to go to a neighboring organization. I did not tell her why. I think it's better. In fact, I did my teeth there 2 or 3 times, and I generally liked it. She went there too. A couple of weeks went by, she kind of got everything done. But then the very thing happens, thanks to which the cheating didn't go unpunished. And in fact, thanks to what she was exposed. They're offering me a brace in Sarah's, Margaret told me. You're fine as it is, why do you need it? She frowned her eyebrows, and of course, said that you have to make yourself beautiful, and you just won't have any eyebrows, or nails, or hair, and so on down the list. Just now, while I'm young, I would do well to put them on. In my case, it is necessary for literally 6 months, as my case is not at all neglected. In general, the price for this pleasure was about 200,000 rubles. There is a little preparation, installation, and maintenance, as they say. I understood that in order to help my clients agree to the service, they would give them money in installments. 15,000 could be brought now, and the rest gradually. It is clear that to pay for all this beauty, if anyone will be, it will certainly be me. Her salary is certainly not such a price tag. Anyway, if you want it, so put it. After all, it's kind of teeth for life. 200,000, well, for 6 months, it will not be too expensive. Especially since I hope I don't get it forgotten, right? I gave her the 15,000, and in a couple of days, she came back with the iron. I actually thought about getting one myself, but in all my time with Margarita, I've changed my mind twice. At first, I changed my mind because I found out from Margaret that they need to be serviced, and I have to go to the clinic almost 1,000 times a week. At the end of the story, I changed my mind again, but vice versa. I decided to take them in because I had found out that there were no endless visits and I didn't need to. Well, Margot just drove me around for us. Anyway, her service trips became more frequent. A couple of times a week, then 3 or 4 times a week. Listen, but is it really that bad there? I asked her, and she read me a whole list of complaints. That there was something wrong, they were redoing something there, and she would have to drive like that for at least another month and a half. A month goes by, and she still keeps going to the center. Look, if it's not too professional, let's not rush into paying for it. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll decide. Margot nodded affirmatively, and I think that was a nod she remembered with a shiver in her heart today. The story has gone on long enough already, and I'm coming to the end. One weekend, she and I were going to go to a neighboring region and take a walk through the local attractions. The weather was nice, and I scheduled my errands so that this particular weekend no one would even call me. In short, we are going on a trip. But just in an hour or so, Margot informs me that today she has to go to the reception again. They're allegedly vacant any window. Well, it can take it now and promise to allegedly finish those his mistakes. This is the case then, and finally drove me to the brink. I waited until Monday and called the administration of that dental center. Good afternoon, may I speak to so-and-so? I'm the husband of this lady right here, and I'd like to know what her endless problems are over there. Sergei, but we can't give you such detailed information about our client. Tell me why you're so interested. Perhaps I could help you without divulging such information. Why am I so interested? I was beginning to lose my temper. For almost 2 months, she has been running to you several times a week, as if for work, and the end, and at least some results I still do not see. One error from her words and shortcomings. I understand everything, even with installments, but it's still 200,000 rubles. Could you repeat the last name? She asked me politely, and it turned out that the last time my wife was there was a month and a half ago. At that time, they installed all that she needed. Then there was only one more visit, and then she was never really there, and most importantly, there was no need to be. Now she's not due for another 2 weeks or so. That's the news. My wife disappears somewhere at least a couple of times a week, and the place she went to heard about it for the first time in her life. There could be a mistake there, though. She could have started going to another clinic. In general, the scandal right out of the door. In this case, I did not, and decided to sort it out, so as not to look ridiculous. We met Margarita in the evening after work, and I neatly asked how things with iron. It's okay after tomorrow. We have to go to the appointment again, to tighten up, she told me, and I decided that these 2 days I either exhale and become glad that I was worried for nothing, but where I'll have a good chance to turn into a bachelor again. She went to shower, and I decided to look at her purse for the first time in my life. I didn't find anything suspicious in it that night. There was still a phone, but my attempts at guessing passwords were defeated, and my fingerprints were never really saved on her phone. To make a long story short, I didn't get to the inside of the phone that night, but I wasn't upset. In 2 days, she's just allegedly going somewhere. In general, we are going to find out what and why. 2 days passed, and I have to ask the chief from work. The wife's visit to allegedly serve her iron scheduled for 4 p.m. At 3:30, I was already at her work, and standing a little further away from the exit to the tiny office, I began to wait. And I actually waited. She comes out of the office, stands right by the road for a few minutes, then gets into a nice car and drives away. I'd, of course, follow her. I'm sure someone will say, maybe it's a cab. Yes, maybe that's why I didn't throw my fists at the man behind the wheel. Anyway, the car pulls into a neighborhood I don't know, and they both get out. He pulled out some packages from the back seat, and I could tell from the labels on the packages that they were groceries from a popular store. I got out of my car too and ran up to them in the driveway. "Hi, maybe you should get your bite fixed too," I asked the man, and judging by his reaction, he didn't even realize that this is a married lady. "I called that clinic. You weren't there. I know all about it." This is the censored version of everything I said to my future wife at the time. I took that man around the corner of the house anyway, but he still wouldn't admit to me that he knew if this Margarita was married or not. Anyway, that day I didn't go to work anymore. I went home to pack her things, but also to send her on her way. However, I did not call her, but she did not call me again from that moment either. Now about the retaliation. Over the whole story, we suddenly forgot that her braces were still there. If she didn't tell that new friend of hers about getting married, then she must have known that for him, it could be the end of their relationship. My point is that she has no one to pay for her braces now. She owes $185 out of the $200,000 for the braces herself. She signed the contract, and she has to pay for everything. That's pretty much it. I had to leave her and alone with a penny wage and the 3 months she has left to pay off the debt in full.